Here we are in the back of a taxi, not a fake taxi, but a real taxi. We're on our way for just a bit of a day trip, bit of sightseeing.
Yeah, bit of sightseeing.
Indeed, and
off to Lublin tomorrow. The Polish banter bus creaks on. We've done our time. We've done our hard time in Krakow.
We've cracked one off in Krakow.
Cracked a few off in Krakow.
And now we're going to lube up in Lublin.
Lube up
not
in
like
Lublin.
that. Not like. Don't clip it, Blackpool people. I don't mean like that. I just mean like.
I mean it like that.
Oh.
And then we're off to Łódź, spelt Lodz, and then two weekends in Warsaw, and then Gdansk. So exciting times.
Maybe even, if by popular demand, maybe even extending the tour. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. So today's topic is everyone's favourite, rejection, and why it's an important part of the game, why it's inescapable, why it's an important part as your life as a man, actually.
Yeah.
And why the more comfortable you get with the idea of being rejected, and the more comfortable you are really in your own skin, and with how your own reality is going, the less it should affect you. Some random person basically saying sayonara to you.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting to go back and think about your sort of formative years and just how painful and difficult rejection was. I mean, I remember, like I would make the classic mistake of getting into sort of unrequited love type situations with girls, or we call it one-itis now, where basically I would typically, like, say a girl at school or I was at college with or something, I would, just be madly in love with her, just completely sort of like obsessed with her to the detriment of everyone else. And ironically, actually, I would get attention sometimes from other girls, but I just been them, not interested in them.
Was there one in particular that stood
yeah,
out?
no, well, there was a few over the years, but there was one in particular. And
What age were you?
so this actually, I was at college, so I went to in the UK, went to secondary school, and then I went to a college which was about 16 to 18.
Right.
So I was like, say 17 or something like that, and I was
in fucking Manchester.
no. It was in the south of England, in the Garden of England.
Brighton.
No, it was in Surrey.
Oh, sorry.
We need to go into details. Anyway,
Well, I don't
look
know.
at
Counties always confuse me because I've got half my house my parents' house in London is in Middlesex, which whatever that means. Then half the house in Surrey.
Are you anywhere near Greenford?
Jesus. No, I haven't heard of that.
Oh, okay. That's where my mate Paul's from. Yeah. Just go down the knocking shop. Anyway, we digress. So I was really fixated with this girl. Let's call her Victoria, and it just went on for ages, And my strategy in those days was always, I'm just going to be nice to her, I'm going to be friendly to her, I'm going to be nice to her, and hopefully at some point she's going to see what an amazing dude I am.
Well, at least you interacted, because a lot of the kind of strong one-iters that maybe I even had, because you become weirdly obsessed with someone, you don't even have the rules to interact with them.
Well, I didn't. I don't want to overplay this. I didn't really have the minerals to really interact. I mean, I've had the odd conversation here again, but it was very much from afar. I mean, I once sent her flowers, right? I once actually sent her flowers anonymously. It was Valentine's Day. Sent her flowers anonymously. I mean, what a chode move, right? And a sort of mutual friend had spoken to her, and she said, I got these really nice flowers today. I hope they're not from Troy, because she knew that, because she knew that I fancied her, and she was like, oh, it's cool, I've got these flowers. I hope it's from, I don't know, whoever, some Chad or whatever. But even that didn't crush me, because I was so sort of like in my mind, I was like, yeah, okay, well, she's saying that now, but she'll come around, blah blah blah. Very delusional. But in the end, she went on a night out. With some other people from the college, and she ended up, making out with this guy, and this guy was like, I think he was like 30 or something like that, and she made out with this dude, and then they were going to go on a date and all this, and I was just completely crushed, because that sort of to me sort of signalled, well, obviously, she'd gone off with this other dude, so that was, that's not quite a rejection in the sense that, going up to somebody in the street and them telling you to F off, but that the crushing feeling of something like that, liking somebody, and then basically, because what are they basically saying? They're basically saying, well, some other dude's genetic material is superior to yours. That's kind of on a primordial level what it comes down to. I just completely crushed, that terrible pain. And
so she started dating this older.
Yeah, exactly. And then things like that, just if there had been any chance before of me actually approaching somebody, approaching women that I was interested in, incidents like that just completely crushed it, because then I'd be like, well, I just can't. What if I get rejected? It's just going to be horrific. It's going to be so painful, it's going to hurt me so much. And so I was stuck for years, well, for a few years anyway. in this place of just not doing any action at all because I was too scared.
Yeah, I mean, I was, so obviously went to, 3 younger brothers went to private school, no interaction with women up to the age of, well, I mean, I guess 14 was when it started.
It's the
but
English way.
It's the school next door or whatever, but obviously it's just a bit awkward. You don't know what the hell you're doing. We all start off as incredibly nice, and we're not saying you have to swing into this arsehole, but we're clueless, aren't we? We're clueless as men. I mean, no one tells us how to act or what to do, and you're going to get those natural kind of Chad guys who are just up to their nuts and guts, and you just assume that's the way it is. Some guys just get laid, some guys don't, but you don't understand why. I mean, even at uni for me, it was pathetic, right? Because I wasn't particularly sociable, I wasn't cold approaching, I wasn't really, trying to throw myself into the mix and actually interact with people I found attractive. So I've told this story before, but there's this one girl, I did history at Nottingham, and she was in my lectures for God knows, the big lecture hall thing. She's sitting there, and I noticed her. She wasn't stunning, she was just cute. And I kind of caught eye contact with her a few times. It took me 3 months. I was always thinking, right, can I summon up the courage to say hello? Never did. Never approached. Until it was a campus uni. So I was going down to buy like a Diet Coke or something in the newsagent in one of the kind of central building areas where they had cafes and stuff. And I actually saw her across the back of the shop reading a magazine. And she was like, and I was just like, fuck, this is my big chance. I kind of went outside, back outside, calm myself down, hyperventilating, stuff like that. And I was like, right, James, Tusk, I wasn't calling myself Tusk. Right, James, in my head, this is your shot. This is the fucking, what it's all been building up to. This is the moment. So I went up and I tapped her on the shoulder. I remember she turned around and there's a look of recognition in her eyes. Not necessarily like, oh, it's really cool, it's this dude. But, kind of a look of recognition like, oh, okay, what's he got to say? And all I could come out with was, I've been watching you, and then just kind of didn't know what to say. And then I added for 3 months, and I just stood there, and the look of shock on her, just horror, fear, terror on her face, and she kind of put the magazine down, scampered out, and I never saw her again. I think she actually left the course. She was so scared,
so horrified.
So horrified by it all. So that was soul destroying, and for me, that wasn't actually the trigger to get into this stuff, but that was one of a few moments where it's just like, something needs to change here. There've been other things where I was mates with guys who naturally did a bit of damage, and again, I couldn't really discern why. But it'd just be like me fancying a girl and the girl hooking up with him and blah, and I was just like, this is shit, Yeah.
There's one thing actually that the two stories have in common, which is that if you don't take action with somebody that you're attracted to quickly, it just gets really awkward and it's likely to fail. And we're talking about presumably like over months or whatever, or even a year or whatever.
You also build it up so much.
You build it up in your head. But even on a micro level, if you're in the Starbucks and you see the cute girl sitting opposite you on the table, the more that you sit there and think, oh, she's really cute, but you don't take action, you don't actually just go over there and say hello, the more likely it is, for a start, she might get weirded out because she might think, why is this strange man looking at me? But secondly, you're going to build it up in your head and make it all the more awkward for yourself to approach. So, and then how did you break the barrier of this? I mean, how did you get through this sort of fear of rejection?
I mean, I didn't really start doing any of this stuff till I was 27. I came out of a relationship where the girl I was seeing, I hadn't really treated her that well, and it was kind of a weird one because it was I didn't want to make it into a relationship. I was kind of terrified of commitment, the standard thing. And she actually went and banged a dude that I really didn't like, and I think it was kind of a way to escape me in a way, and also just a kind of a two-fingered salute, so that really cut me, and I felt helpless and lonely and low for a period of time, and I was like, right, I can't. It was almost that breaking point. We talk about a lot of the time when I get a guy on the call, consulting call, it's not because sometimes it's like he's living a good life and he wants to make it better, but usually the driver for change is emotional pain and frustration.
Yeah, you got to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, so for me it was that. It was like I've basically never performed with birds. I've always been a bit shy, socially awkward, never been, particularly forthcoming. And I need to do something about this because I don't want to continue this reality. And I was like 27, I was like, fuck, am I too old for this,
Yeah.
Even at that stage, I was like, am I too old? Have I left it too late here? Because I'd never really done any damage. I'd always sucked with women. So I was like, right, I've got to do something about this. And then I saw, obviously, the daygame.com I saw Date Against the Machine with old TT.
Yes.
and John Matrix, and that, you know, spurred me on because I'd always been a big drinker, and I was like, okay, well, look, I've got to kind of face my demon sober, which is actually just being comfortable around hot girls or being comfortable talking to women and expressing my intent. So this is the best way to do it. It's going to be fucking painful, but I have to do it. So I think getting into that, and you know, when I first started doing that, the rejection still stung. You know, it's the buffers, you do get blown out, and you're like, what the fuck, you know, and girls flaking on you, text you back, and you're like, fuck, what's wrong with me? It almost makes it worse in a way because you're not conditioned to that rejection.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to hide, obviously, when it's sober, when it's day game, because you can't pretend. You know, if you're drunk on a night out, you can just put it down to, oh, I was drunk, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, is it? It's not like that.
I mean, for me, it's hard to pinpoint the exact moment. I mean, like I've told the story on different videos and things, but I mean, for me, really, I mean, to be frank, a big point of it was really going to Manchester and you know, sort of get to some extent getting on it with the old alcohol and, you know, party substances and things like this. And I'm not recommending that for anybody as a way to go. But for me, it's sort of, and I also started to take some antidepressants as well because, well, it's sort of a moot point if I was genuinely suffering from depression, but I was certainly very withdrawn and, you know, I was very unhappy for, you know, that period. Yeah, sort of early in uni. So, and the combination of those things, and obviously I was mixing it all together, which you shouldn't do anyway, sort of turned me almost overnight from being a very sort of self-deprecating, you know, kind of self-hating really kind of a dude into a bit of a cocky, funny kind of a character. And, you know, the surprising knock-on effect of that was actually I started to attract some girls towards me. It helped also, I was working in bars as well. And the sort of bravado and the cockiness that I hadn't really had before came in. And I almost, it's really weird, I almost flipped my character. And then I was sort of starting to, and I think it was at that point because I was talking to different girls and obviously some of them really liked me but others didn't, and I had some rejections, and I started to realise, well, actually the rejection doesn't really matter. Now at the time they was still stinging sometimes, you know, there'd be a girl walking to the bar and I'd be like, oh, you know, I'd say something to her and she would, you know, she'd not be interested, and that would actually still sting underneath. But because I was realising I was building up this bravado, I started to sort of pretend it didn't. And also, and then through that process, I started to realise, well, actually, it kind of doesn't really matter, you know. And I started to become more comfortable. But it was definitely a bit of a process, you know. It wasn't just this overnight thing.
Yeah, and you know, going through this process, we always talk about different phases of learning this stuff. If we're relating it to cold approach, say, where you've got the meeting girls part.
Yeah.
You've got the texting, you've got the going on dates, and then you've got the actual kind of dating and relationship management, I guess you'd call it. And obviously the rejection, the kind of impact of rejection is different at different stages. So when you first start cold approaching, if you're doing it sober, day game for example, it does get to you. And we talk about, you know, we always talk about this, but the more you don't have the other areas of your life on point, things like self-image, things like self-esteem, self-love, self-acceptance, living an interesting reality, and all those other factors that make up male sexual market value, the less you have that shit together, the more the rejection is going to impact you. Because we all get into this thinking, basically, we don't like ourselves, do we? We get into this not liking ourselves, and we think, right, what I've got to do is bang loads of women, because then it's basically problem solved, and we don't really think it through. But as we all go through, you know, as they say, game is a bit of a Trojan horse. You sleep with a load of hot girls, you date some hot girls, and you realise, actually, I'm just the same fucking bloke, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual process, so the rejection stings a bit at the beginning for the actual dating, for the approaching, but then you get a different type of sting when she drops out on the texting. Obviously, when you start going on dates and they don't work out, that's a kind of a slightly deeper pain, because you're like, oh fuck, I can get them out, but now what the fuck, I can't actually sleep with them, which is incredibly frustrating. You put in all this work, and then obviously, you know, further into that process, when you actually start dating some women and it doesn't work out, they dump you or they go for someone else, that's a different type of pain. So the more invested you are in the whole process, obviously the more the rejection is going to sting. But I do think it comes down to just really understanding what you want in life, really understanding who you are and being on your own side, and just being like, almost just embracing the fact you're going to get rejected.
Yes.
It's so important, isn't it?
Like you said, being okay with yourself, I think, is a really key thing, because I was, you know, completely not okay with myself for a long time, you know, very unhappy, really hated myself, hated the way I looked, hated the way I talked, hated the way, you know, pretty much everything. I genuinely I really bought into and actually
And I think
encouraged.
this is the black pill narrative.
Yeah, yeah, no.
People so self-hating, aren't they?
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, I was essentially black pill before the black pill had been invented. You know, I thought. No, it's true. It's true. I'm actually the original wheat waffles
He's the Black
because
Prince,
yeah,
the original Black
because you know, I thought. You know, I got knocked back by a couple of girls, and then I thought, well, you know, I don't make the looks threshold. This is it. It's a life of you know, celibacy for me, sort of thing. And I genuinely, and actually, even though there was evidence to the contrary, because as I said, there were girls who liked me, you know, at school and college and stuff. I clung to that narrative because, in a way, although it was really painful, it also sort of was quite comforting. Do you know what I mean? And that's one of my issues with the black pill, because I think a lot of people wallow in it, but anyway, that's a different topic. So yeah, you know, I mean, the rejection is painful, but the more all right you are with yourself, it matters less. So now, I mean, I've been rejected a couple of times in, you know, just in the last few days. I mean, you get a phone number, they don't reply or something like that, and then you can. Does it sting? I mean, a little bit. I mean, it can do. I mean, you kind of think, well, what's wrong with me? Why did she not? You know, why did she seem to like me? Why did she not? Obviously, she didn't. What, you know? But it really does it. Does it really matter? Because I've got stuff going on. I mean, we're here. We're doing a trip today. We've got some stuff on later. We're going to Lublin. So I mean, like you've got a life. You've got stuff going on. You know, and not to mention, obviously, you know, other maybe people you're dating or whatever elsewhere, right? Because we're living this life the whole time. So yeah, I mean, so what's the conclusion of all of that? It's just you've got to be all right with yourself, haven't you?
Working on yourself as that most important relationship. There's a great quote, and I'm going to smudge it, but it's something like, the relationship with yourself you have with yourself dictates every other relationship you have. And you're actually, by working on yourself, by working on these areas of self-love, self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-esteem, you're actually giving a better version of yourself to people you care about, and then potentially women you date as well. One of the big things that I found hard to digest, and obviously it's when you take a hawk's eye view of it, it's completely obvious, because you've got to look at the numbers involved. But for me, yeah, it was similar to you. It's like one girl or a few girls have rejected me, so it's game over. Yeah. It's like all women must somehow think the same about me. Yeah, so they've got exactly the same perspective, which obviously, when you think about the fact everyone else is made up of completely different genetics and genes and literally different balls of flesh and different experiences and different tastes in life, that's obviously nonsense.
Yeah, and especially there's 3.5 billion of them.
Yeah, 4 billion women, right? It's nonsense. But that was a big thing for me. It's just being a bit stupid with it all, actually, and just thinking, right, okay, so 3 or 4 birds have rejected me, it's game over. They all are going to reject me, apart from the absolute buffaloes that go for.
And obviously at that time as well, what I didn't understand was, say for example, like at college or school or whatever, obviously I was, at that point, that was a very, very small dating market that I was in. And actually it was one of the worst dating markets in a way, because you're in that hierarchical situation of a school, and, you know, probably the Chad or whatever, and, you know, the couple of guys at the top of the pile, and then, you know, everyone else comes underneath that. And the whole thing of what we do now is we don't engage in those hierarchies, because we're traveling around and we're meeting different people. So, and also this whole thing going to different countries and stuff like that, you learn over time that actually the dating marketplace, it's not just this one homogenous thing. It actually,
it's vast as well. If you think about how many options you have, it's really that kind of abundance mentality. Now, the corollary to this is, if you are going around and you're doing 100 approach and you're not getting any numbers, no dates, we always look for patterns, right? So there has to be, alongside obviously a lot of rejection, there has to be some modicum of success.
What was that guy on the stream yesterday? He said he did 150
approaches in a club and couldn't even get in a conversation. It's like, okay, bro, you're probably doing something. I mean, fair play to you, you know.
150 approaches
I've
is.
never heard of anything like that in a night. I mean, that's
like beats King Cole.
Yeah, I mean, makes King Cole look like a sort of approachless virgin. Yeah, but I mean, this has to be tainted with a modicum of success, and this is why tracking your numbers is important. Not religiously on a spreadsheet, but just, you know, keep a track roughly of how many approaches you've done per week, and how many numbers and how many dates you've got on. Yeah. And it's something that I do whenever I go to a new place, just to kind of keep myself looking at that kind of facts, not feelings things, because we all know the stats are, if you approach, 30 women you're attracted to you don't know, probably you sleep with 1 or 2 of them. Those are good stats from cold approach. So keeping that in mind, I think, keeps you sane as well, because it's very easy to get in your own head, especially if you come from that background of having low self-esteem, to be like, oh no, it's almost you revert back to your old mentality. What's wrong with me? It's like, hold on, just check the stats and see what's actually happening.
Yeah, but the point is that that place where rejection is such a defining part of your life is a very, very painful place to be. And I'm just so glad that I, by whatever reason, I managed to pull out of that, because I think if I hadn't, my whole life would have been, don't want to say ruined, but it would have been very different to how it is now, and I certainly wouldn't have had the success, in dating and relationships that I've enjoyed, but even more than that, just with everything else, with friendships, with business relationships, like all of this stuff, because you need to get right with rejection across the board, don't you? It's not just girls. I mean, it stings more with girls. It feels more personal with girls. But the better you get with rejection with women, the better you're going to be able to handle rejection in other areas of your life. And it's so important to be able to do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it really is a process of desensitizing yourself to rejection. Obviously, putting the numbers in, but just accepting that as your life as a man, a large part of it is going to be things not working out, right? And that alpha thing, if you want to go alpha kind of beta stuff, is to just pivot, change something and adapt and move on and get better, right? It's the whole Darwinistic adaptability thing. You can't dwell on this stuff. You've got to get on with it. We live a very finite time. You might as well just shrug it off and go again. But again, if you are in a position where, relating it to dating, you are doing 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 approaches and you're not getting numbers and you're not getting on dates, there are things probably you're doing. We always look for patterns that need to be adjusted, and the best way to do that is obviously come and join us in Poland and get some feedback on what you're doing.
Well, yeah, so we're in Poland right now. We are in Krakow at the moment, but we're going to be leaving tomorrow, basically quite early tomorrow, and we're going over to Lublin, and then we're in Poland for the next sort of 5 weeks, basically. Every weekend we are doing a training event for 4 days, Thursday to the Sunday, in these different cities. So we're going to be in Lublin, then we're going to be in Łódź, which is spelled Lodz, then we're going to be in Warsaw for 2 weeks, and then we're going to be in Gdansk the following weekend. So we're getting up to about mid-July by then, aren't we? So if you're in Poland, but if you're in Europe or you're in the UK, or even if you're in the States and you can get yourself over here, come over here and join us for one of those events, because if you're in that place of pain and if you are suffering what we suffered, I mean, the best thing to do is to break the back of it, and the best way to do that is to come to a place like this where it's very friendly, it's very social, there's lots of beautiful attractive women around and everything, but also with us, and we can help you through the process, we can push you into interactions, and we can give you feedback, and also as well we can tell you what's realistic, because I was one of the guys we were training the other day, he was saying if I'd have been on my own and I was doing this, I'd have had a couple of rejections and I'd have thought, oh no, woe is me, but because we're there we can say no, it's completely normal. So yeah. It's also understanding what's realistic as well, and we can help you do that. And obviously you'll be working with some other students, and you can put yourself into context with them as well.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we do this full time. This is the easiest you've ever had it, really. And all of this stuff we had to kind of figure out ourselves.
Yeah.
But we're able to shortcut that process. So come and join us in Poland. I mean, just to recap, the women are obviously very hot here, very feminine, speaking English, like foreign guys, and there's 3 million or so former Soviet Union women running around as well. So, and it's summertime, so sun's out, guns out, flesh out,
buns out,
knobs out. Yeah, get in touch, info@jamestusk.com, send me an email, or troy@realtroyfrancis.com, include your WhatsApp number, and we'll have a chat about you joining us in Poland.
Yeah, so you can do 4 days, or you can
1, 2, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. We can be flexible.
£750 per day, 4 hours infield training plus support outside of that. And yeah, come and have a blast with us. We're looking forward to it.
See you later, guys.
We're on our way to Krauser's penthouse.
Right, let's cut that. Well, here we are in the back of a taxi.
Jimmy fucking Jambon! No, we've got a car. You could just do it like that.
Yeah.